What's up, good people of YouTube? Welcome back to another monthly update, this time for the UK commercial property sector. So my residential property updates on a monthly basis have been very popular. In fact, they're the most watched videos on this channel.
Jesus Christ.
So I want to give you more of the content that you're coming for and try and expand it for you. I want to offer you guys more. So this is going to be a similar style to the videos that I do for residential, but for the UK commercial property market. And I plan to make these videos either monthly or quarterly, depending on the availability of the data and of course how useful you guys find it. So if you do, drop the likes and share it. That will let me know whether to keep on making these videos on a monthly or quarterly basis. So just before I start, guys, a quick intro to what commercial property is. So commercial property are properties and land that are used for profit generating activities rather than regular residential purposes, i.e. homes to live in. And the main categories of commercial property are retail, office and industrial. So this includes everything from the office where you work on a daily basis, to a factory, to a farm, to your local McDonald's, or the off license around the corner from where you live. So commercial property is very vast, guys. It's a very big category. I myself am interested in investing in commercial property next. As you might know from my other videos, I have 3 residential buy-to-let properties. I'm specifically interested in a niche area of commercial property that's affordable. It's called mixed use. Here's an example of a mixed use property that I walked past earlier on today, guys. Now, mixed use, as the name suggests, is one property with dual uses. So usually on the bottom, you'll have a commercial unit, i.e. a shop, and above it, you'll have residential units that people live in. So you have 2 uses and 2 incomes, guys, in one property. And as I said, I want to explore these as my next area of investing because they offer you 2 solid streams of income and good diversification. So next time you're out, have a look for these types of properties. Once you know what they look like, you're going to see them everywhere, guys. But back to this video, what we're looking at today is how commercial property is performing in the UK. So I'm going to keep today's intro to the commercial property market nice and simple, guys, so that we can all get accustomed to it. And as we go on, I can add more detail to these updates. So this is a bit of a busy slide, guys. So let's break it down into its individual components and look at it bit by bit and build up the picture as we go along. So let's start with the labels across this axis. On the x-axis, what we have is all property. So this is all commercial property in the UK. And what this is an aggregate average of all of the other types of commercial property categories in the UK here that I've got highlighted. So all property is an average of all shops in the UK, all retail warehouses in the UK, all shopping centres, all of the central London offices, all of the southeast offices, all of the offices in the rest of the UK, all industrial property and all other. So now that we know what the categories are, each category on this graph are essentially looking at all commercial property in the UK. What is the overall graph actually telling us? This graph is showing us the returns on commercial property in the UK over the 16 months since COVID-19 began back in March 2020. So this covers a 16-month period and it's telling us what has happened to commercial property in the UK. Now, interestingly, if we just take a second to compare this to residential property in the UK, if you've been watching my monthly updates on residential property, you'll know by now that residential property in the UK has absolutely soared during this 16-month COVID period. We've seen unprecedented demand and growth in the prices of residential property across the UK. Why is that? Well, in very high level summary terms, people have gone on a search for space. So people are moving out of busy, crowded, densely populated city centres due to the fear that's been spread among the population as it relates to infection rates, and they've gone on a search for space is what they've dubbed it in the media. People want bigger houses, they want more space, they want gardens, they want more rooms in their property, they want less people living around them. So they've gone out to suburbs, greener areas of the UK and bought houses there, and a lot of people are doing that at the same time. Now, coupled with that, there is a lack of supply of those houses that all of these people want at one time, and that has pushed the price of property up. So we have seen a really strong residential property market, which nobody really expected. If everyone's honest with themselves, we all expected the residential property market to die quite a horrible death during COVID, but the opposite has happened. back to this graph. When we look at what's happened with commercial property, let's just take a second to just think about what's happened to businesses in the UK over the past 16 months. Those what were deemed essential by our government, so stuff like supermarkets, off licenses, pharmacies, etc. Most businesses in the UK have been shut for a significant period of time over the last 16 months, and many businesses have gone out of business over that period. What does that mean in practice? Well, businesses have been unable to pay their rent. If you're forcibly closed as a result of government rules, you can't generate any money, you can't pay your rent, or you pay a significantly reduced rent. And commercial property differs to residential property in that the value that you pay for a commercial property, the price you pay for it, is derived from the rent that you receive from it. So what we can see in pink, I'm going to call this pink, is a whole host of negative numbers: -5, -12, -11, -35, -3.9 across the board, with the exception of industrials, and we'll talk about industrials in a minute. But essentially, across most commercial properties in the UK, the value of those buildings has dropped over the last 16 months as a result of COVID. And overall, remember at the beginning we said that this first column here is a summary of all of these other categories to the right. Overall in the UK, commercial property has dropped by -5%. And I said we'll keep this video simple, but let's just look at a few key drivers for that. The biggest drop that stands out to all of us is this -35.8% for shopping centres. Of course, shopping centres were not open during most of COVID because they'll essentially be a breeding ground for COVID. People together in an enclosed space all at the same time. Obviously that was counterproductive, so shopping centres have suffered in particular. Offices less so at -3.9%. Why was that, guys? Because nobody was going into offices during COVID. People were working from home. Industrials, on the other hand, has actually risen. Industrial properties are those that are used for manufacturing and assembling products. People have still needed products, but for the most part, a lot of people have shifted towards ordering their essentials, and perhaps in bulk. Who remembers at the beginning of COVID where people were stockpiling things like loo roll and food? People were in fact over consuming products which they wouldn't have otherwise over consumed under normal societal circumstances. So the industrial sector has been key to the UK, so it's actually thrived during COVID. Think of things like masks produced over the last 16 months and everything else related to COVID, and just general supplies and goods that people, and essentials that people need. So that's what's driving the overall decrease in the growth of commercial property over the last 16 months. Lastly, what I want to look at, guys, is rental value growth. I know there's a lot of other elements on this slide, but as I said, I want to keep it simple. What I want to look at is rental value growth, and this kind of backs up what I was saying a few moments ago with regard to businesses not being able to operate during COVID, and as a result their rents falling. So what we can see across the UK as a whole is that rental value has fallen by around about, I'd say that's about 2% here. I would have thought, if I'm honest, it would be a lot larger across the commercial sector. But as we can see, this overall net reduction by 2% is basically an average across all of the subsectors, and we see a variance according to that. So shops, retail and shopping centres have seen quite large falls in rental value growth. We've got 10% for shops, around about 5% for retail warehouses, and at the larger end about -15% for shopping centres, which again is understandable because most shopping centres, retail warehouses and most shops were closed during large portions of the last 16 months. Central London offices have dropped by about 2%. I would have thought that would be much larger. I work in Central London and I know firsthand, ain't nobody going into Canary Wharf, Bank, London Bridge, those type of areas for work. But hey, those businesses have still been paying their rent for the most part from this graph. Southeast offices, the rental value has actually grown. The rest of the UK offices actually flat, so there's no change. The industrial sector, the rental value has actually increased. So again, they must be thriving. They are thriving. So Along with that, the rental value has increased, and other is at about, I'd say that's about -3%. So you can see that there's a variance depending on which sector you're in. And overall in the UK, to summarise, the overall rental value has dropped by around about 2%, which is much better than expected, if I'm honest. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. So now moving on, what I wanted to show you is this graph. I found this very interesting, and this is a graph showing how retail, office and industrial commercial property has performed over the last 20 years, 21 years to be exact, since 2000, just to put everything into context and just to show you where in general these sectors of commercial property have been headed over time. So what I want you to do, guys, is focus on the green line first of all, which is retail. So all of your high street shops, your local shops, etc. In 2000 to 2005, we're talking economic boom territory. Upwards, graph is going upwards. Then in the great crash of 2008, the last major economic crash, everything tanked.
It's above me now.
So not just retail in green, but also offices and industrial. The global economy really took a hammering and then back up again over the next year. And it's been quite erratic, above zero. And by the way, we're talking about total return. So return from capital appreciation, rise in the value of the property, and also rents. So it's been very volatile from, I'd say, around about mid-2008 all the way up to 2018. In some good years, it's shot up to 15%, and then it's gone down to zero. Back up to 15% again, then down to zero. Very turbulent sector, guys. And then over the last 4 years in particular, retail has been on a downward trend. And obviously COVID hasn't helped things at all, but you can see way before that, since 2017, we've been heading downwards. Why is that? Well, the high street is dying, guys. Things like Amazon, online shopping really has changed the way that we all shop for good. Many brands no longer need huge department stores, retail stores in prime areas of London on Oxford Street, in your local shopping centre. An online presence in a lot of cases is a lot more effective. And what I believe has happened with COVID and will happen with COVID, that has really just quickened the inevitable. A lot of businesses that really were on their way out of existence over the last, let's say, 10 years, that death has essentially been brought forward by COVID. Offices in blue next, they've essentially mirrored the retail industry. Big crash in 2008, up and down, quite volatile over the next 9 years to 2017. And then a gradual decline. And again, not just over the last 16 months, but over the last few years. I remember when I started work in 2008, we had to come into the office every single day. There was no real work from home option for people at my level. I was a graduate, by the way. But as I've gone through my working career, more and more, that option to work from home has become more and more prevalent across my industry, and I'm sure many other industries. So what does that mean? Once again, the closure of a lot of offices across the UK. And once again, I believe COVID has quickened that. Then lastly, industrial, kind of the opposite over the last 4 years. There has been a slight decline from 2017 to 2000 and mid-2018, but you see a bounce after that. So clearly the industry is on a trend back upwards. So just for that overall context would be helpful, guys, for you to understand what's happening in these sectors. So now that we understand what's happening in the commercial space as it relates to the three main categories, retail, office and industrial, what does that mean for us? Well, there are opportunities, guys, within retail and office. What I'm seeing a lot from savvy, smart developers that I follow and keep my eye on with regards to their movements is that they're snapping up a lot of retail and office spaces that are no longer needed by companies that have essentially gone out of business, and they're converting these guys into residential property. Now, I believe that this is an area of property where significant gains can be made right now, guys. You can lock them in now. If you're able to get your hands on the right property in the right location and convert them into residential property. And we know, guys, that there is an overall shortage of homes in the UK. The government have a target of, I think it's around about 300,000 homes that they're looking to build per year. They haven't met that target in decades. We need more homes. And a great way to achieve that, guys, is to convert existing buildings, obviously subject to planning permission and all of that kind of stuff, into residential homes. Maybe you can buy an office over 2 floors and convert that into 4, 8 flats. Guys, the gains are huge, and that's something that I want to move into over the coming years, and I'll make more videos on that as we go along. But this essentially was an intro for you guys into commercial property. Let me know if you found this useful. If you do, I will make more regular updates on this particular area of UK property. I hope you found this useful, guys, and I'll see you soon.